Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here. It's very exciting. And it's a really, really exciting time to be talking about how businesses really can become activists and help to change the world. So it's more important than ever because, businesses have a role and a place and really a responsibility towards society and towards humanity. So we're going to dive into that today. I'm going to tell you three things. I'm going to tell you the difference between cause marketing and what being an activist and advocacy organization can look like. I'm going to tell you why building social movements is critical to creating change in the world. And lastly, I'm going to introduce you to a model, basically a way of thinking that can help you to transform your traditional marketing tools into tools to create a better world. It's what we try to do every day at Ben & Jerry's. We don't always hit the high bar, but we strive really hard to do it. So just real quickly, my name's Jay Curley. I've been at Ben & Jerry's a little over 9 years now. And it is an amazing place to work. I live back in Vermont in the US, and we have wonderful green hills and a lake. It's a great place. And I run the US consumer marketing team, and from a marketing perspective, our global activism and advocacy work. But really what that breaks down to is I kind of have three jobs. One is a traditional ice cream marketer. Right? And that looks like you would expect it to look like, telling our fans about our new products. Like, I don't know if you guys know, we just launched our non-dairy line here in the Netherlands. So things like that, things that you would expect an ice cream marketer to do. The second bit is really around being a digital storyteller, right? And everyone's saying that these days, but that's really my job, is we're running our organization more like a media company where we're telling 500 plus stories a year, 100 plus videos, thousands of pieces of content, and we have to run our organization like a media organization. And the last third is really around being a campaign manager for an advocacy organization. And that's mainly what I'm going to focus on today. When I do all three of those things at once, they're all better. I'm a better ice cream marketer, I tell better stories, and I can create more positive impact in the world. So that's what we're going to dive into. Before we do, though, I need to transgress or take a step back, and honestly, I need a favor from you guys. So when I was invited maybe 6 months ago to come here, I was really excited. I'm really passionate about inspiring and enlisting other businesses to kind of take this approach that we have. And I was like, okay, October, I think I should be able to do that. October 12th. October 12th. So today is my oldest son's 5th birthday. All right? And so clearly I am here on the other side of the ocean and not in Vermont. So if you guys could please indulge me, I want to send a happy birthday message to him from here. Can we do that? Is that cool? All right, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my phone out. It's 4 in the morning, so I'm going to record this. Although he's probably up because he's excited because it's his birthday. But real simple. I'll do a quick little message to him, and then we'll kind of turn the camera around. We'll do 1, 2, 3, and then we can say, happy birthday, Chet. Is that cool? All right, let's do a little practice round. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Chet. Awesome. All right. Here we go. Maybe. Hi, Chet. Hi, buddy. Look, you're big up on the screen, and there's lots of people here. And we want to wish you a happy birthday. So 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Chet. All right, thanks, buddy. I love you. Thank you, guys. That also helps because I feel really guilty that I'm not home, and this helps a little bit. So, all right, let's dive in. And let's jump back literally a couple thousand years. human society, and this is going to be very top level, and I'm sure you can poke a little bit of holes in this, but bear with me, please. For thousands of years, the dominant force in society was usually religion. And that had its downsides to it. But one of the upsides was, at least in theory, religion was about trying to make the world a better place for people. It didn't always happen, but that was what most of the world's major religions are striving for. Over the last couple hundred years, nation states really became the dominant force in society. And in a similar way, you could find a lot of fault and problems that we had with that. But in general, the nation state is there for the health and the existence of society, or at least those it deems to be its society. Now, post-World War II, our challenge is that businesses have been the dominant, most powerful force in society. The problem with that is most businesses' legal responsibility is to return profit to their shareholders. And that is a very, very narrow focus that excludes the well-being of society. That's the bad part. The good part is that we have had a bit of an awakening over the last couple decades around the need and the responsibility that business has to create a more healthy, better society. So what I'm going to talk about today is that work does not have to be in sacrifice of returning a profit to your shareholders. You can do both, and as a matter of fact, you have to. If businesses keep that narrow focus, then they will have no one to sell their products to. So we'll take a step back here for a sec. Just a little bit about Ben & Jerry's. So we've been around for almost 40 years now, and we've been trying our best to do this work all throughout those years. Back in the 80s, we were, working on issues. Remember, it was the Cold War, around demilitarization, and we've advocated through the years for more sustainable food systems, LGBTQ rights, and it's something that's kind of baked into our DNA. What that's allowed us to do is, in some ways, kind of break ground on how a business can do this work. But I think what we know we need is we need all of you to be doing this same work at your businesses. Ben & Jerry's can go away tomorrow, and relatively speaking, the world will go on just as it was, right? And so I think what we need to do is enlist more businesses, more agencies, more folks like you guys to join us. So I titled today's talk Beyond Cause Marketing, because I think as business has awoken to this idea around the need to be responsible to its customers and to society, this whole field of cause marketing has grown up. And to be very clear, there's nothing wrong with cause marketing. I'm not knocking it. But I think it's very different building a cause marketing campaign versus doing real issue advocacy work. And the difference really is where you come from and what your goals are, not the actual substance of what you build. So in cause marketing, you often start with, what do my customers care about? Just like you would if you were launching a new product or meeting some type of consumer demand. It really starts with, what is the need of my consumer? And then how do I emotionally connect with them? And then I'm going to build my brand around that. And the goal, usually, is around brand affinity and building brand equity. And that's fine. There's a lot of good in the world that happens because of cause marketing. Our approach is different. We start not with, what does our target market think or need? We start with, what are the issues and values that our company holds dear? What is our purpose in the world? What do we believe in? And then what is the change we seek to create in the world? And then we build campaigns to inspire our fans to join us in these movements. And that's how we seek to create social change. Now again, the output may look very similar, but the approach, what your objectives are, what you're measuring, what your strategy is different. So that's what we try to do. We try to take kind of the tools that any marketer has, your advertising, your products, your communications. We try to use those to create a better world. And you know, in doing so, if you're doing it well, if you're really trying to change the way things are, there's a good chance you're going to piss people off. Because there's a lot of people who like the status quo. Those people are usually the folks that are either empowered, and they're certainly not the ones that are disenfranchised. But think of it this way. If you are taking a stand, standing up for your values in a way that is pissing people off, at the same time, you are likely connecting with a group of people who share the same values as you. And from a business perspective, there's no better way to build a brand than to have a deep connection with your fans or your consumers that are built around actual shared values, not around pandering to what their current needs are. So think about that from a brand building perspective. Now, I'm often hesitant to talk about this or to share this, but given the audience, it's worth going through. The activism and advocacy work that we do is good for our business. It's not why we do it, which is why I'm even hesitant to share it. And to be very blunt, if the campaigns I was building, my KPIs were around ROI in sales, I'd probably do things differently, and I probably wouldn't do as well. But when you do it, you end up getting people to be more excited about who you are and what you're doing, and at least in my business, that usually leads to sales. The other thing is, when you're doing this work and you're having meaning in people's lives and you're trying your best to have a real impact on society, you are relevant. You are part of culture. And again, that's critical for certainly consumer businesses moving forward. All right, so there's a lot of marketers in the room. Depending on if you went to school for marketing or when or who your professor might have been, you probably learned about either the 4 Ps or the 5 Ps or the 6 Ps. When I Googled it, there's even the 7 Ps of marketing. And that kind of classical approach works fairly well when you are, selling soap to people who need soap, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to abandon it. But what I want to introduce is a way of thinking and an approach that will allow you to kind of shift the tools that we have to do this issue advocacy work. So I'm calling it the 6 Ps of activist marketing because us marketers really like alliteration and we like frameworks. So here is a framework that has nice alliteration. But it really focuses on purpose, which is why your company even exists. Policy, the actual change you're seeking to create. People, your team that needs to be living and breathing this work. Power, which is really the full operations of your business. Publishing, which is really how you can be connecting on an ongoing basis to these movements and to your fans. And lastly, pop culture, which is about relevancy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take you through each of these steps quickly. Before I do that, I want to share a campaign that we did last year in the US that was focused on racial justice and voting rights in America. And again, we tried our best to apply this framework to to the campaign.
There are some things so precious, things that when we start losing them, we have no choice but to wake up.
You look at the Capitol right now, and it's surrounded by scaffolding. We're building a democracy here, and we have to constantly maintain it.
We need to have a democracy that represents everyone.
We've come to this hallowed mall to say to America, there's an awakening happening.
No matter what line of work you call yourself, how do you stay responsible to your principles? And how are you constantly looking at yourself in the mirror and making sure that you're putting your principles into practice? And so to have Ben & Jerry's to be a partner is going to be huge because ice cream brings people together. It does.
We all deserve to have a voice. We're all human, we're all people. And, you know, that's our privilege, that's our honor, that's our right to have that.
So, just a little bit of context. I think it's very different here. But in America, you actually have, frankly, one political party that's trying to limit people's rights to vote. Because they're scared of their own power and losing it. And so we're fighting every day to kind of keep people's rights to vote. In that video, you probably saw a lot of vanity metrics that you're used to seeing in recap videos, right? Impressions and page views and stuff like that. We didn't add those in there just to, follow the cliche of a recap video. We put them in there because, and this is the second bit I really want you guys to remember, the goal of our work, and I would say the goal and the role that business can play in creating change in the world, is to support and grow existing social movements. Right? So how do we use our voice and our place to bring more people into existing movements? It's not about us deciding what the strategy and what the voting rights campaign should look like. What we do as a business is we go to those progressive organizations that are working on this. We go to the NAACP, we go to Common Cause, we go to Color of Change, and we say to them, what do you need from us? How can we support your movement, right? And that's how we build what our KPIs and our objectives are, right? And then we can kind of do the fun, creative builds around that. But it's a very different approach. And hopefully, again, what it will do is lead to social movements, because that's how we create change. It's not going to be a single organization or a single business that does this. It's going to be people collectively coming together. And that's really business's role in creating change in the world. All right, so let's go through those 6 Ps. And let's start with purpose. And every business exists and it has a purpose. And frankly, if you don't have a differentiated and unique kind of purpose in the world, you're going to have trouble in your business regardless, let alone trying to do this work. But I think it's important to find out what that purpose is, and then understand how you can use that purpose to create change in the world. For us at Ben & Jerry's back in the late 80s, we really solidified our mission. And it's a 3-part mission. And back in the 80s, the idea of having a 3-part mission was very radical. Thankfully, today, it's not so much. Make the best ice cream in the world, that's our product mission. Give a fair return to our stakeholders, that's our economic mission. and our social mission, which is to use the operations of our business to create change in the world. You know, that's different than saying we're going to make a lot of money, not do bad things, and give money back via charity. Right? It's how do we use our everyday operations? How do we, you know, use the ingredients that we source or the stores that we have or our marketing to make the world a better place? The second bit is policy. I think there's really two types of ways that businesses can support social movement. One is around changing the dominant narrative and culture, but the other is on real, concrete policy action. So we're running right now a campaign around refugee rights across Europe, including here in the Netherlands. And what we're looking to do is not just change the way people slightly think about the plight of what it might be like for a Syrian refugee whose home has been destroyed to try to come to a place like Europe. But we want actual policy change. So we're looking for the European Parliament to, and there's a specific bill to support around legal and safe routes for people to come here, so you don't have the dangerous things that are happening. And that is actually getting our fans to contact the MPs, and that's how we can hopefully have, you know, real policy change. The third bit is people. Now, for all the agencies out there, this is a big opportunity for you. Don't take this the wrong way. This work cannot be outsourced. It must be, the people doing this must be core and of these movements, not reporting on these movements, right? And that doesn't mean that you have to hire lifelong activists. Far from it. It means the people that are working on this work have to go through their own journeys to learn about the issues, to get engaged, and to find their purpose, and bring that passion to this work. I will tell you, if all I did was sell ice cream, I would have left Ben & Jerry's a long time ago. And that goes for most of the folks I work with. We are there because we believe in our mission. And so I think that's a great way to think about it. Now, for all you agency folks out there, and this is advice for regardless of whether we're talking about issue advocacy work, you need to not be the agency in the other building. You need to be on that team. You need to be as passionate, and you need to be bringing those issues as forward as anyone else. And that way you become vital to your clients. Power. Here's the power I am not talking about. I'm not talking about businesses funding trade groups and opaquely going in behind closed doors to try to change government policy. That is not the power I'm talking about, because unfortunately, that's often how businesses interact in this space. What I am talking about is your voice, your place in culture, what you do every day. It has power. How do you then harness it for these issues? So for this campaign, we launched an ice cream flavor, because that's one of the things that we have. Actually, it's the best thing that we have to connect with people. And it was called Empowerment, and it was focused on voting rights. And what we did is we launched the flavor with Reverend Barber down in North Carolina, which is kind of ground zero for this type of voting rights work. And we got the entire national news to write a story about voting rights, because we told them we were launching a flavor and Ben & Jerry were going to be there. It's kind of an old bait and switch, but it's how you use your place and your power and your voice to shine the light and help build these movements. Publishing. So again, for us, we've found that doing one-offs is not a way to build long-term sustainable social movements. But being engaged on a regular basis in telling our fans, inviting them in around what the issues are and how they can get engaged is a powerful tool to building those social movements. And when you do that, you're able to build kind of credibility with those social movements and with your fans. And you're able to kind of, at the right moments, have a real impact. And one example is our support of Black Lives Matter last year, and then this summer, after working so hard to get the Paris Climate Agreement ratified, our president decided he wanted to get out. But again, everyone's newsfeed was cluttered with, here's why leaving the Paris Agreement is bad, right? And we took the exact opposite approach. We said, here are 6 reasons why leaving the Paris Climate Agreement is really great. And it was things like, who needs chocolate and vanilla anyway? Because climate change is going to destroy those crops. We'll start making, pine cone ice cream. And, it was a satirical approach, but it cut through the clutter and it got people to realize what the impacts would be if we don't live up to that accord. And that kind of blends nicely into the idea of pop culture. And really, what I mean by pop culture, and I said pop culture for relevancy or for alliteration reasons, is I mean relevancy. How do you stay relevant, and how do you use your place with your customers, with your fans, to do this work? So back in 2009, Vermont, as a state, legalized same-sex marriage. I know you guys have figured that out a long time ago in the Netherlands, but it took us a while to get there. We renamed Chubby Hubby to Hubby Hubby in celebration. And back in 2009, that was radical. No other businesses were supporting that, right? And so next thing you know, we were being talked about on every late night show. But more importantly, we were helping to normalize the idea of same-sex marriage. So again, it really comes back to that relevancy bit. So the last bit, this is a video that we created for Paris, and it uses our ice cream.
This is what happens when ice cream is just a few degrees warmer than it should be. For Ben & Jerry's, it's a mess. For the planet, it's a metaphor. Because just a 1.5-degree warming of our planet's climate would have an equally dramatic, though much more significant impact. But we can prevent it. Thanks to citizens around the globe who stood up and took action, world leaders came together in Paris and committed to keep warming below 1.5 degrees. And now, the real work begins. Together, we can create innovative solutions that keep our planet, and those who live on it, thriving. Because while a 1.5-degree change may not seem like much, the truth is, it means the world to us. Join the global climate movement and take action now at benjerry.com/climate.
So yeah, we thought we had won that battle, but we'll still be fighting it. I think the exciting thing here is we were able to use who we are in our unique, place in the world. We're an ice cream company, but use it as a metaphor to get people to think differently about what climate change really means. And that resonated in culture. We had all the folks in the movement, from the UN to Greenpeace to the Climate Reality Project, et cetera, sharing out that content. So that's basically the model, okay? Hopefully it gives you guys a framework, because I've given a talk like this before that is meant really just to inspire, and people come up to me after and they say, that's great, but what do I do? And so I think this is an attempt at trying to share an approach and a framework that you guys can hopefully use in a practical way. So 3 things to think about, right? The difference between cause marketing and actual issue advocacy. The need to grow social movements. And then using a framework like this to bring it to life. And I will say, I'll be here for the rest of the day. I would love any feedback people have specifically on the framework, because it's far from perfect, but hopefully it's a good starting point that can get you guys to think differently. So that's where we're at. I think that's the exciting part. Here's the good news and the bad news. All right? We're at a pivotal place in time. Businesses have the power and the opportunity. And we can create change in the world. But to be very clear, nothing will change. Not a single thing. Not unless people like you, businesses like you, companies like you, take on this torch and use what you do every day, the 8 to 10 to 15 hours you spend a day. Think about how you can use that time to create more change and create a better world. So please join us, because unless you do, nothing's going to change. So thank you all.